Hello and welcome to Explorations in Economic History and Thought, Socialism. So this lecture is on the path to Stalinism and the party line. Now, in the last lecture we talked about different factions in the party, and even if they didn't actually offer a cogent alternative, it would have meant someone else would have been party leader had one of those factions won power, in which case it would have won the party line, and whatever they said would have been the party line. Of course, Stalin couldn't allow factions like that to continue to exist, for there to be alternatives to his rule, alternative ideologies. In fact, he wasn't the only one. No one in the party believed that there should be several alternative policy choices within the party or with separate parties. They believed that in unity, they believed it was very important for all of the people to come together and stand behind a single party line in order for them to be able to come together as well behind a production plan and to come together with an enlightened view on how to put the production plan into practice and to slowly begin to build socialism, and from socialism to be able to eventually get to communism. So the majority view became the party line. That's how the party line was determined. And by the mid-1920s, the majority view included a view that factionalism must be outlawed. And slowly Stalin began to take over the role of determining the party line. And as Stalin began to do this, he began to dictate the party line, dictate what the party would do. And of course that turned him into a dictator. And after that, there's nothing that anyone can do to defend against this party line, to protect themselves from being accused of being a factionalist if they disagree with it. So they must agree with the party line. And the dictator of the party line can sway everyone in the party, all of the most powerful people in the country, by setting the party line how he wanted to, against their opponents or for their opponents, and in that way begin to play the people like puppets. And this is exactly what Stalin began to do as the 1920s wore on. And of course after that, the only way to get rid of him was for a revolution of some sort, or of course in the end in his death. So this is exactly what Stalin did. As general secretary, he was able to keep tabs on everyone and began to determine what he wanted the party line to be, and began to control it using all the information that he had on the others in the party. He began to turn them against each other as betrayers of the party line. And he could do this by controlling the party line and slowly beginning to control the people in the party, setting them against each other and playing them like puppets. And he gained immense control over the people and, of course, over the nation's resources. So in consolidating power and becoming this dictator, pretty much everyone in the party ended up getting pulled into this to make room for Stalin to take over. So in 1927, Bukharin testified against Trotsky, making accusations of fracturing and factions. And Bukharin described the party line as the democratic outcome, the result of a vote. And he said that that then has to be enforced in order to maintain unity. And so as Bukharin said to Trotsky, why would the majority choose the party line otherwise, if it wasn't, the right line, the line that we should back? And so Trotsky lost his responsibilities, including that of war minister, due to his advocacy of Trotskyism, which was obviously a belief in his own ideas. He relinquished control without a fight, seeing that he agreed in general that everyone in the party had to follow the party line in order to lead the people, that this was the right and utopian thing as they moved towards socialism. So he gave up without a fight, and he was later exiled and then killed. And a decade later, it was Bukharin
who was on trial in 1938 and finally executed. While he was in prison waiting for his trial, and as he expected execution after that, he wrote several books. He wrote 4 books, I think, while in jail. One of them, the most interesting probably, was called Philosophical Arabesques. And I sort of imagine jumping through hoops, trying to explain how his utopian society would work. But it was a very good analysis, or interesting analysis, of many philosophical questions. It's worth a read, even if by the end, there are many problems to be found in my opinion. And I think that plays out when you look at his life. But in any case, he wrote, under socialism, society itself is transformed into a deliberate subject. Society itself becomes a teleological entity, a situation that is expressed succinctly in Stalin's formula. The plan? We are the plan. Here is the isolated subject, he said, the individual, simultaneously and to the greatest possible degree becomes immersed in the collective. Here we find the unity of the collectively organized will, he said, and it enriches her humanity, her individualism rather, to the maximum degree. So becoming part of this unity, becoming part of this collective will, enriches and enhances the individuality of the person, of the individual. It's quite interesting, if a bit hard to swallow. So how do people let this happen? Well, for one thing, if people are true believers, then they may wonder if someone is held up on trial, if someone is brought to trial for being a counter-revolutionary or something. Someone might believe, well, they must be guilty because, what, are all the witnesses being coerced? So they might find it hard to believe that there's a conspiracy against this person, so it must be true. And then there's the fear aspect. If anyone does suspect that there's a problem or doesn't believe in the party line, then they may, be feared that they may experience fear that they're going to be the next on trial. So they end up conspiring against each other. They end up being witnesses against their friends and family members because they're worried that they'll be next. So when this fear and this non-belief, because they don't want to believe in a conspiracy, both coexist within the society, it can quite easily become this conspiracy, and people will, and so the people can allow innocent people to go to jail or to be executed because of this interaction between this non-belief and fear. I've been saying that the left opposition, the communists on the left, didn't have a platform of a true theoretical platform to offer. What about Trotsky? I mean, didn't Trotsky have something to offer, some alternative to Stalinism? Trotsky's often held up as an opposition leader who, if he'd won power, would not have pursued Stalinist policies. He's often called a Democrat. And he even spoke about the problem of substituting the party for the worker or the dictator for the party. So, in other words, he was arguing that decisions should be made from the bottom up, and that, the leaders shouldn't usurp from the workers the right to make decisions. So how true is this? Well, Trotsky argued against the program of the right, arguing that it would lead to capitalism. And that was the program of the right was the one that was a bit more market-friendly, a bit more decentralized, and a bit less centralized and planning-orientated. And Trotsky argued against the results of policies, not against the policies themselves. So in other words, just like I've been arguing about the left opposition groups in general, Trotsky didn't really offer a theoretical platform that was really any different in terms of policies than what Stalin was offering.
So what did Trotsky learn when Stalin turned against him? Well, in the short article Lessons of the Capitulations, written in 1930, Trotsky describes Stalin as the apparatus of the party, as an automaton, devoid of ideas and strangling the party. And he reminded readers how each of the party leaders had taken left and right positions at different times, only to later repudiate them. But Stalin picked up the ideas of different party members and presented them as his own. He even picked up fragments of the opposition's ideas because he had no ideas of his own. And Trotsky said the party represents ideological selection. One can also read Trotsky's criticisms of Stalin in this article and wonder whether it's actually different from the policies that Trotsky was advocating in the first place. So he said that Stalin was devoid of principles and ideals, but Stalin represents the party. He was taking the party line. He was taking bits and pieces from each and finding the majority view and representing the majority view rather than representing his own ideas. He criticized Trotsky for Trotskyism, and at that time at least he could say, now, we're used to saying Stalinism now and describing his period as leader as a Stalinist state, but at the time he was just finding the majority view and presenting it, so he wasn't actually guilty of Stalinism the way that he was accusing Trotsky of being guilty of Trotskyism, because he had no ideas of his own. So that was actually the ideal. And similarly, Trotsky says that he capitulates, but if only one party line is acceptable, it's actually correct to capitulate. So let's review this briefly one more time. On Trotsky, unity, and the way that Stalin acted as party leader or as general secretary. There's a slow evolution of ideas that Trotsky pointed out, but can this occur when one party line must be chosen? And we should ask whether the party line creates this bureaucratic pressure that Stalin identified. Not just Stalin, but actually the party line itself might have created this pressure. And even if one isn't scared to dissent, if the individual loses their power when they dissent because they're creating factions or fracturing the party, and if there's a continual merging of ideas towards this dominant party line, then you're going to lose the other ideas, and you're certainly going to lose these individualistic ideas that are being punished. Of course, this is what they wanted. They wanted a movement towards unity. However, a little voice in your head might be saying, well, what if the people don't like the party line? What if they're lying that they like the party line? What if the majority view is chosen because people were scared and were going along with something that, some bully pushed them into, and it wasn't really what they wanted? So maybe you need to be more enlightened than we are in order to make this kind of a system work, if ever.